Keeland, every moment matters.
Welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room, brought to you by Keeland. I'm Zoe Cadman, filling in for Bill Finley, who I'm going to give you a direct quote, guys. Bill said he's going to be in Florida drinking beer and watching the Red Sox in the sunshine. So go, Bill. I'll be filling in for him today. I'm Zoe Cadman with First Racing and First TV.
Let's see. Bill could be sitting here, or he could be drinking beer and watching the Red Sox in Florida sunshine. He probably made the right call. I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports and the Buyer Speed Figure team.
TD Thornton checking in from a little north of Boston today. I'm a correspondent with Thoroughbred Daily News.
How's the weather, guys? Is it warm and sunny in your climes yet, either one of you?
I'm in Minnesota. It was 62 degrees here yesterday.
Wow.
Pushing past 60 degrees here today as we tape this on Monday in Boston.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the first order of the day. It's going to be the San Felipe, 50 points to the winner. That went to Potente. I'm a little bit biased, so I'm going to let Randy start first.
I thought it was an okay prep. Disappointed in Brandt, who set a reasonably robust pace. But if Brandt was going to be, I think, what Brandt was touted to be because of his lofty purchase price, I think he probably wins that race, which wasn't an especially strong Derby prep. Instead, it looks to me like Brandt may wind up being more effective around one turn. Potente winds up beating Robusta. The big Calumet Farm long shot, like 70-1 or something like that. Robusta looked like he was home free and then sort of staggered home with the final quarter and a little bit over 26 seconds. Didn't change running leads. He was on his left lead to the wire, and the Baffert trained Potente ran him down late. I don't think Potente is going to be the favorite, though, for the Santa Anita Derby. Potente, Robusta, a couple of other horses in there are going to wind up going back again in the Santa Anita Derby. But Baffert has another 3-year-old out there that we talked about last week that just broke his maiden, named Cherokee Nation, with a 100 Buyer Speed Figure. And right now, it looks to me like Cherokee Nation is going to be the favorite in the Santa Anita Derby if they all get back together and reconvene as expected.
Yeah, we had two prep races over the weekend, the Tampa Bay Derby and the San Felipe out at Santa Anita. Similar in that they both came back numbers-wise right on the level. They both earned 89 buyers, and they were both won by fairly lightly raced horses. Potente is now 2 for 2, and the Puma, who we'll talk about in a bit, is broke his maiden in the Tampa Derby. A little bit unusual to see a horse breaking its maiden in a stakes race, but I agree with Randy there. The $3 million Brandt off at 4 to 5 odds. He was cooked by the 3/8 pole. So Happy got first run on him. Robusta got second run on him, and Potente came along, had to shift off heels of Robusta in deep stretch. It was a well-timed ride by Juan Hernandez. However, it's a little deep into the season to be getting on board horses who are 2 for 2, and he'll be making only his third start coming up in the Santa Anita Derby.
All right, well, let's talk Potente really quick. He's going to be better around 2 turns. We said that going in. He galloped out 5 in front of the rest of the field. I like him moving forward from here. We'll see where Bob sends him. He did kind of fiddle with him, thinking he might have taken him to the Rebel earlier, but he said he can be kind of a little bit funny sometimes, so he wanted to keep him at home. I have a feeling he might want to ship him before Derby time just to see how he handles everything. The number's a little bit low, but visually the gallop out was very good indeed for Potente. As far as Robusta is concerned, the horse he beat when he broke his maiden was none other than Cherokee Nation, who, like you said, Randy, will be one of the favorites for the Santa Anita Derby. So he's run against a pretty good horse. That may have been Cherokee Nation's worst race, but Robusta beat him. He never should have been 60-1. Absolutely no way he should have been 60-1 in there. And as far as Brandt's concerned, he just needs to go 1 turn. He was never an overly big horse. He's grown, but he's not your atypical 2-turn horse. He's going to be a good horse. He's going to be a good horse, and I believe he's going to be a good horse around 1 turn. So that wraps up the San Felipe. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Derby. The Puma breaking his maiden. I refuse to say Puma. I'm sorry, it's not in my English nature. There is no poo in Puma, as far as I'm concerned, at least by the spelling. It's Puma. He is named for Gustavo Delgado Sr. because that's apparently what they call him, the Puma. I can kind of see why. Breaking his maiden, it was good. Congrats to Ramiro Restrepo, the team that bought Mage, for purchasing him off a Hidden Roof for just $150,000. So thumbs up for the Puma. What did you think of the race, Randy?
If a time traveler had come up and whispered in my ear before the race, hey, I got a tip for you. A maiden is going to win the Tampa Bay Derby, I would have pulled everything out of the bank account and lost it all on Power Shift. Because I thought Power Shift was probably going to win the Tampa Bay Derby going in. He was a maiden, and he hopped a little bit at the start, but he really had no excuse after that. The Puma and the other horse he was rallying with, Canaletto, came flying by on the outside and just blew by Power Shift around the turn. Now, it's easy to look at the Tampa Bay Derby and say, okay, it had an 89 Beyer speed figure, which is not good, the same as the San Felipe. But I think in this case, you got to look a little bit deeper, because both the Puma and Canaletto ran anywhere from 4 to 5 wide around the first turn and from 5 to 6 wide around the second turn. So you can't just take the Beyer speed figure at face value and say, 89, that's a slow race, because they covered a lot more ground than even Further Ado. I mean, it was a great ride by Irad Ortiz on Further Ado to sort of stay in the forepath around the turn and keep those other two, way outside of him, stacked up and turning for home. He fanned out a little bit, and he does what Irad does, good race riding. He just wasn't quite good enough to get the job done. But if you factor in the ground loss, the race wasn't as bad as it looks on paper, right? Now, Beyer speed figures don't factor in ground loss. But what I did, and I'm not going to get into the mathematics because it'll make your eyes glaze over, but, I went in. Equibase distance traveled actually is pretty accurate on their Equibase E charts. I know I've been a critic of Equibase data in the past, but they're kind of getting this right. They put a lot of effort into it. So you can look at the distance traveled and you can compute a feet per second, and you can do all those calculations. And I did them for all of the prep races, the last prep races we've seen so far. The Fountain of Youth, San Felipe, the Rebel, the Tampa Bay Derby, and the Risen Star. All right. And I factored in the ground loss and got a true number for every horse. And what it shows is that the Fountain of Youth horses are by far and away the best that we've seen so far. Chief Wallaby rated about 3 points higher than Commandment because he covered more ground in the Fountain of Youth. Then you've got a gap of about 5 points after that to Paladin, the winner of the Risen Star, and the Puma, just because of his ground loss. So his speed figure was 12 points lower than Commandment just on face value, but he makes up 7 points of that 12 due to the extreme ground loss that he had in the Tampa Bay Derby. So I'm not quite as critical of the Tampa Bay Derby as some people might be just looking at the speed figure at face value.
And I think the Puma was not your ordinary maiden winning the Tampa Bay Derby. He had some street credibility, so to speak, because of his company lines in his 2 races. He had lost a maiden race to Chief Wallaby at Gulfstream Park. And then he ran in the Sam Davis at Tampa, so a maiden in against Stakes Company for his second career start, going around 2 turns. And he lost a Renegade in that race, so he was, in effect, facing a little bit of an easier grouping. Both of those 2 horses, Chief Wallaby and Renegade, are ranked in the TDN top 12 for this month's Kentucky Derby rankings. But another thing that happened prior to the Tampa Bay Derby on Saturday afternoon was that the skies opened up and it began to rain right before the race. Now, before they ran the Tampa Derby, there were 7 previous dirt races on the card. 3 of them were won in wire-to-wire fashion. The other 4 were won by horses just sitting right off of the pace. And I don't know if the rains really totally changed the complexion of the racetrack. Equibase called it fast. I would have called it a wet fast type of designation. But you wonder if it did make the outside a little bit better place to be. The Puma was 4 wide on the clubhouse turn, shifted out to the 8 path on the backstretch, was 5 wide for his big run around the far turn. Canaletto also gave up some ground, but he was traveling okay as well. He was 6 wide into the clubhouse turn, 7 wide just down to the Puma's inside in the backstretch, and he was in the 4 path on the far turn. And even post-race, I was surprised because Canaletto made that big move, and Flavien Prat, in his comments after the Tampa Derby, said he was surprised that the horse produced that much run because he didn't feel he was traveling that well underneath him. So you wonder if the reins messed up the footing a little bit or changed it subtly. But that race was won by a horse stalking, coming from off the pace. And the final race on the day, which they took off the turf, was also won coming from farther off the pace. So the tracks seem to have shifted. And I will give some subtle, maybe better than it looks type of points to Further Ado, because under those circumstances, he pressed the early pace and then stuck around to be involved in the photo finish at the end. So I think the Tampa Derby, just lining up those 2 races on Saturday, comes back in my mind a little bit stronger than the San Felipe.
Yeah, one more quick point I want to make. I know we're running out of time here. The Puma in his last race at Tampa, and also this one, shifted in down the lane and sort of lugged in. And he did that again in the Tampa Bay Derby and actually probably cost Canaletto second place. He came over just enough at about the 16th pole to interfere with Canaletto. If I was a steward, I would not have done anything to the order of finish because I thought the Puma was the best horse. Thought he went on and won by, enough. But I was very surprised that there wasn't at least an inquiry sign put up by the stewards because there should have been.
All right, well, we know the Puma will be headed to the Bluegrass for his next start. Let's talk about the ladies. We'll head to Oaklawn Park and discuss the Azeri Stakes. Take nothing away from the winner, Dan Ward, winning a graded stakes there, former assistant to Jerry Hollendorf. A Majestic Oops getting the win. She's by the big cap winner, Majestic Harbor. She's a Calbred, so congratulations to the connections of her. But Randy, what happened to Nitrogen?
You would think the off track would have been just fine because she's handled it very well in the past. Every off track is different. And, as we've, often said jokingly, horses are not machines. It's not a joke. It's true. They don't always run their A-level race, and Nitrogen clearly didn't run as well as she is capable of running based on her past performances. Now, what does that mean going forward? I don't know. I don't think Mark Cassidy knows. I don't think John Green knows. The Apple Blossom will be next, for her, which was the race they were pointing for the first part of the year anyway. It's not like she ran poorly. I mean, she was third and she was mixing it up with a couple of decent horses in front of her. Credit to Dan Ward. He's done such a good job with this mare. When he first got her, the breeders owned her and gave her to Dan at the beginning of the 2025 Oaklawn meeting. And within 3 or 4 races, he had really engineered some dramatic improvement. And she went on a 3-race stakes win streak. And she was purchased after her Monmouth Stakes win by her current owners. And Dan has just kept her going at a pretty high level. I mean, she doesn't always run that well. She didn't run that well in the Breeders' Cup, but she sure bounced back at Oaklawn.
And she's a small, skinny filly. I mean, she really seems to outrun and go over the top on occasion. She broke on top. She broke running, conceded the lead, stalked down on the inside on a sloppy track, and then swooped 4 wide into the lane and was really responding to the rousing ride that she was given. But it's her 35th lifetime start. Earlier in her career, she was running for as low as a $12,500 claiming tag in Northern California. She also competed up in Alberta in Western Canada. So it's nice when you see those dark horses, so to speak, come up and spring the upset. And
it was the first ever graded win for Dan Ward as a trainer of record. How about that? He was assistant, obviously, for a long time for Bobby Frankel and also for Jerry Hollendorfer. It was really cool to see that.
Good guy, Dan Ward. Wishing him all the best. Okay, for someone who wasn't a surprise winner on the day, let's talk about the Grade 1 Beholder Mile. Splendora TD, 5-weight race win streak for this Grade 1 Breeders' Cup winner. What did you think of her performance? Walk in the park?
She just keeps rolling along. She is the defending champion in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint, and I think they're going to be pointing her for that as the year-end goal this year in 2026. Last spring, about this time, Bob Baffert tried her going 9 furlongs, tried a mile and a 16th, figured out that's not her ball game. 7/8 going 1 turn, a 2-turn mile on this weekend in Santa Anita. That seems to be her sweet spot. She was in just complete control and cracked the race wide open under light urging.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with her next. Michael Talla, the co-owner, said after the race that they're going back east. He said, we're going to go where the money is. So what does that mean exactly? You look at the stakes schedule coming up nationwide, and in 4 weeks' time, there's the Apple Blossom Handicap at Oaklawn, which is $1.25 million. That's where the money is. But it's at a mile and a 16th. She's done okay around 2 turns, as long as it's not mile and an 8th. In the right spot with the right trip. She would face Nitrogen if she goes in that spot. Are they going to do that? If they don't, what do they do? Look for maybe what used to be the Humana Distaff at Churchill Downs, 7/8 of a mile.
I think that's where they're going. I think that's the spot.
I mean, that's a long time to wait, but that's 7/8 of a mile is probably a little bit more in her wheelhouse, like TD pointed out, than a mile and a 16th. So we'll see.
And let's talk about a little bit of the other owners. Randy Boyd, who is the president of the University of Tennessee system, brought in with his wife, Jenny. They were on hand to watch her run. They bought, who did they buy? Seismic Beauty. They purchased Vava for $3.1 million. So they got the 1-2 in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Already, it looks like they're going to be a big force in the game. Do you think?
Yeah, they were looking for another broodmare to add to their broodmare band, and they said, okay, they love Splendora. Why not? Who wouldn't love Splendora? And the fringe benefit of buying in now, and it was a reported 50% interest, is that they get to watch you run for a year, and then worry about the breeding shed, so they can have some fun along with it.
Santa Ysabel was run on Sunday yesterday at Santa Anita. Once more, Randy, we got to see Super Corridora just stand in the gate and just lost the race at the beginning and could never regain traction. Bob Baffert running. Who won that race? I have it written down here somewhere.
Forced Entry.
Who won?
Forced Entry
won the race for Hall of Famer Bob Baffert. What do you make of the Santa Ysabel?
Well, I think you've led off with the proper point there. I mean, the race was decided, so to speak, taking nothing away from Forced Entry, but the 2-year-old filly champ and the Breeders' Cup winner, Super Corridora, tossed her head a little bit, dwelt in the gate, had some awkward action, and was really not persevered with late. And we saw in one weekend two champion distaffers, the 2-year-old filly champ, Super Corridora, and Nitrogen, at Oaklawn, both going down in defeat. But Forced Entry, it was a stalk and pounce type of trip, and it's just her 3rd lifetime start. They had tried her sprinting on the grass in start number 1, transitioned her over to the dirt, and stretching out on Sunday afternoon proved to be the right mix. But Super Corridor helped her out a little bit by getting left behind.
Yeah, hopefully Super Corridor came back okay. I would presume they would go on to the Santa Anita Oaks, given the fact that, it wasn't really her fault necessarily. I mean, she did it to herself, but you can't expect that to happen next time. And she was the favorite in there, I think, primarily because it looked like she would be able to set the pace, and that's her game. That she's really, at this point, she looks like pretty much a one-dimensional front runner, but that dimension's pretty strong if she can get to the lead. But after the start, I mean, a horse like Super Corridor, if you're one-dimensional, you got zero chance in that situation. So I always hate when people say this, but this is truly a draw a line through it type of race. And going forward, just completely ignore it, and we'll see if Super Corridor can make the lead if she runs into Santa Anita Oaks.
So Forced Entry took down the Santa Ysabel. It's time to pay some bills. We'll hear from Keeland, and when we come back, we'll have the Gainesway Guest of the Week. I do want to remind you that the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeland. It was a big day of graded stakes action on Saturday and a big day for Keeland grads. Final Boss won the Grade 2 Frank E. Kilroe Mile at Santa Anita. 2-time Keeland graduate Destino d'Oro took the Grade 2 Hillsborough. Disruptor, there you go, Mike Rapoli, won the Grade 3 Challenger Stakes at Tampa Bay. And the Puma named for Gustavo Delgado, won the Tampa Bay Derby. We'll be right back after this message from Keeland.
We do this so your granddaughter can work on a farm someday. So the stands will still be packed in 50 years. That's why we come to work every day, obsess over every single detail. Because the story of racing is written one moment at a time. And the future of our industry deserves nothing less. Keeland, every moment matters.
The fastest horse of the week is brought to you by the Fast Sires at WinStar Farm. This week, let's talk about Timberlake, their Grade 1 winning juvenile by Into Mischief. If you recall, Timberlake won the Champagne Stakes as a 2-year-old, and finishing behind him in that race was Fierceness. And now Timberlake's foals are stepping out into their first stage. Here's a couple for your admiration. Here's a colt out of Liffey, photographed at just 28 days old, bred by Judy Hicks, who's also the breeder of Torpedo Anna. And this is a 38-day-old foal out of Cora Pearl, bred by Marablu Farm and Pegasus Stud. No telling what the others are going to look like. Timberlake stands at WinStar Farm for a fee of $15,000. Fastest horse of the week ran in that race I know you guys are all familiar with, the Big Daddy Stakes at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. His name was Joe Shiesty. Joe Shiesty has been a sprinter of some success in Kentucky. He loves Turfway Park, 4 for 7 lifetime. And all he did in his first start of 2026 in the Big Daddy was to draw off and win by 6 1/4 lengths with a career-high Buyer's speed figure of 104, co-owned by the Foster Family Racing and Lonnie Reynolds, trained by Eric Foster. You might remember Eric as the trainer of Everland, who won the Bourbonette Oaks and went on to finish 5th in Torpedo Anna's Kentucky Oaks, and Kitadan, who took down the $750,000 Dueling Grounds Derby back in the day. So congratulations to the Fosters. Joe Shiesty, your fastest horse of the week.
It is now time for our Gainesway Guest of the Week, and I'm very pleased to say it is the one and only Mr. Alex Lieblong. Alex, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. It's been a good weekend.
It's been a good weekend indeed. It's been a good year for you, and that's where we're going to kick off with Reef Runner. Congratulations, by the way, on winning over there in Saudi. I've never been to Saudi. Can you just give me an overview on how your trip was, and culminating with the win? It had to be just absolutely brilliant.
It was. I wanted to. One of the reasons I want to go, I really wanted to see Saudi. I understand with the rest of the, Dubai and everybody, but I still wanted to see Saudi before it had changed too much. But they're changing very, very fast, and everybody was very nice. And my wife had a problem going over there. She chipped a tooth on the plane, so we had to get a dental deal. She wasn't real nuts about that, but they would have men's waiting room and ladies' waiting room. And I asked where should I sit, and they said anywhere you want. And so I did. I sat with her but some Saudi people came in and they were traditional, and he went to the men's side and she went to him. And I thought, well, out of respect, I'm going to go sit on the men's side. And so, but everybody was very, very nice, and it helped winning though. Made it even nicer.
Big expectations going in there?
I thought he'd run well. He usually shows up. He doesn't throw too many bad ones. And so it's usually just how the rest of the race is going is how he's going to do. But I had him, my thought was in the top 3.
And next on his dance card, obviously, Alex, since he's over there already, will be Dubai as we speak. The drones are flying, the explosions all over the place. Although Dubai seems to have calmed down just a little bit. What are you going to do? First of all, are you anticipating that they'll go ahead and run as scheduled? And if so, do you and your wife hazard the trip over to Dubai like you did Saudi Arabia?
I think so. I think one, they'll have it because I think there's politics at play, egos at play, and he's done such a fabulous job over there with that. I mean, who would have ever thought Dubai could have done? I mean, it's just amazing, and it's probably not written about enough. But Horse is training well, and somebody says, he can hear the missiles going over and this and that, but it hadn't bothered him. They say he's actually trained a tick better than he was in Saudi Arabia. And yes, the answer is we're planning on going if they open up the airspace. But I did say something to Joanne last night. I said, look, why don't I could just go. I said, I can run fast pretty good, but I don't know. And she said, I don't know, buddy. If you're going, I'm going. So that was it.
Alex, as you know, you've been around. There's an old saying, if a horse is so totally calm and nothing bothers him, you could set off a bomb next to him and it wouldn't bother him. Let's hope we don't test it out to that extreme. But yeah.
Alex, my understanding was that after Reef Runner had won in Saudi Arabia, it was your intention and your wife's intention to keep him over in that part of the world and then aim for the big sprint race on the turf in Dubai. But you wanted to bring your entire family over there. And I guess that's called into question.
That's called into question. There's got a couple of granddaughters. One granddaughter thinks I'm nuts at this point for even considering it. But I told her, I said, look, 75 is the time to take chances, not 25. And so, at 75 years old, you don't want to leave two things on the table.
Well, let's talk about your homebred, Reef Runner, who's by your stallion, the big beast, who stands for just $4,000. And some people have buy a $4,000 stallion. But I think a lot of people have forgotten that he's actually out of a half sister to Paradise Woods, a grade 1 winner. Tell us how proud you are of having a homebred that's accomplished so much already.
Oh, it's fantastic. And there's a story. What's so great about it, I've got so many of my trainers have all got something to do with this. Hobby was the first trainer of the big beast, but I remember Hobby coming to me as a 2-year-old and said, hey, he's too fast. If we go on him now, you're not going to have a horse. Now, not a lot of trainers will tell you that anymore, but Hobby did back then, and we ran him, I think, March of his 3-year-old. And then as Oaklawn wound down, we thought, okay, he'd fit better up in New York. And so Tony took him up there and did a great job up there with the King's Bishop. And then Mandela is actually the one that picked out the mare. We were going through, of course, that, he was close to the family. And so, like I say, and then Asmussen ended up training the mare. So, like I say, they all pretty well got in there except Jinx for my old trainers.
From Steve Hobby to Dutrow to Asmussen. Yeah. So you're 75 years old, you just told us, but you haven't slowed down too much. You're still a businessman of note in Arkansas. You're the chairman of the Arkansas Racing Commission, the longtime chairman. How did you get involved in horse racing to begin with? What's your background in the sport?
Well, we always were around horses. My wife and I, we got together probably in the 8th grade, and around here it was rodeo. Everybody around here, it was a rural state, obviously. It had livestock and horses and things like that. So we rodeoed from that time on. But as we got older, that part kind of slowed down. And some good friends of ours, Gus and Pat Blass, he said, hey, why don't you get a horse? I said, well, I'm not sure I know anything about that. He said, so we joined. They were nice enough to let us join them for a couple of years. And then finally, Buddy called me one day. He said, well, I've taught you all I can teach you. You're on your own now. So at that point, I split off and got into deep waters.
And tell us a little bit about the depth of those waters. You've been very active at the sales, but you've also picked up some brood mares, and you're involved in producing horses that you race yourself. What is the split right now of your stable between homebreds and horses that you buy at auction?
I've been guilty of that a time or two. But now we're getting more and more homebreds coming on, and it's still, I can buy what I think is a 10 at the sale, and he turns out to be a 3. You can do the same thing breeding one. So we'll probably keep a little bit of both going. But at 75 too, it's time to start pulling in the horns just a little bit.
I don't see you slowing down anytime soon, Alex. Not anytime soon. Hey, give me the update on Big Paradise.
Big Paradise, that is that's one. He's still down in Florida, right? That's the,
Yeah.
you're talking, I'm getting
The half brother.
Paradise Bay's other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that one. That
The
one got
sibling
claimed
of-
from, right.
Oh.
And now
I
so what she's got on the ground right now is the Omaha Beach, and I think she just had now this is tough, Life is Good. Tell you a funny story about Omaha Beach. Of course, Mandela called the other day. He said, "Hey, I got a new plan." He said, "You need to stay here and let Fox go on over there with the horse. And if anything happens with Fox, send the horse to me." And I said, "Okay." So Dick was out there working.
So, Alex, you've not only been a longtime chairman of the Arkansas Racing Commission, you were on the commission for quite a while before that, before you were made chairman, and you've seen Oaklawn Park go through quite a comeback thanks to the gaming and the casinos that are fueling such a huge purse increase at Oaklawn. You've seen both sides. You've seen Oaklawn when it wasn't doing quite as well, when it was struggling a little bit. What's your opinion of the overall landscape of horse racing right now around the country? Do you think gaming is going to be absolutely essential for a racetrack to be successful? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I don't like that in a way, because I kind of think, there was an old guy that used to tell me when I was a kid, I heard him say this. He said, "I believe every tub ought to sit on its own bottom." And in a way, racing's not sitting on its own bottom. It's taking, contributions from other areas. There was a big lightning. Sorry about that. So I would, I'd like to be able to see it stand up on its own, but I think it's still, at this stage, it's got to have some help. And where we're lucky at Oaklawn, we have been very fortunate at the purses, and we're very fortunate because of the ownership of Oaklawn. They truly like racing, and that's hard to find at this stage of the game. And there's not a whole lot of new tracks being built.
Alex, did you ever, in your wildest dreams, thinking back 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, think that Oaklawn would be where it is today?
Oh, no, I was laughing the other day because I always remember thinking about, man, if we can ever just make it to Keeland, when the purses jump. When I think we were running for 25 or 28, whatever it was down here, and then the purses up there were 50. And so everybody's game plan, and that's when we ended in time to go to Keeland. And to now look at the purses, I mean, it's astounding. And looking at the horses, I mean, it coming through there. You going down the paddock and looking at the horses, the big change over the last 5 years and the quality of the horses here is amazing. And my performance has gone straight down because of it.
Hey, you don't expect us to believe that, Alex. You're winning races all over the place.
Well, I had to go 8,000 miles to win one race. But
it was a good one.
Yes, it was. That was the right one to win. I'll put it that way. I have done it in reverse before, win the $10,000 claimer and lose the stake. So we did it right this time.
Well, Alex, we're wishing you the best of luck in your endeavors, and good luck in Dubai. We're really rooting for you. If anyone is rooting for you, it's myself and fellow Archibred here, Randy Moss, and of course, TD.
We miss Randy, and like I say, I grew up with, didn't grow up watching him. I grew up with when he was the man. Randy was.
This week's guest of the week, Alex Lieblong, brought to you courtesy of Gainesway. And we're now watching the Gainesway Stallion drain the clock, put on quite a show at the OBS Breeze Show this week. They're tearing up the track all over the place. We tape the show on Mondays this week, one day before the OBS sale begins, but the offspring of Drain the Clock have absolutely dominated the 5 days of breezes. 2 Drain the Clocks equaled the OBS track record, breezing a quarter mile in 20.1 seconds. They were hip number 284 of Philly and hip 748 a Colt. Meanwhile, hip 508 registered the fastest time on Friday with an eighth of a mile in 9.3 seconds, and hips 132 and 595. All they did was covered the eighth of a mile in 9.4 seconds. In all, 25 sons or daughters of Drain the Clock are entered in the sale, which again begins Tuesday and runs through Thursday. And for all that speed, Drain the Clock stands at Gainesway for a fee of just $10,000.
Drain the Clock will win and win by as much as he wants.
Drain the Clock will bound home the winner. Drain the Clock, Jockey's Warrior, Drain the Clock by a head.
$270,000
in the back. $250,000.
It's now time for First Things First, a fantastic weekend of racing at Santa Anita this past weekend. I caught up with the connections of the San Felipe, the Grade 1 Big Cap, and of course the Grade 1 Beholder Mile.
And they're off in the B. Wayne Hughes.
Celebrate Splendora taking down the Grade 1 Beholder Mile. Here with the jock, JJ Hernandez, and of course owner Michael Talla. JJ, that was a pretty nice birthday present. Happy birthday. Did you ever think you would get an opening quarter in 23-2 for your birthday today?
Well, you know what? She's really fast out of the gate, and she was doing that really easy. And you know, it's always you expect like probably go a little faster or a little slower, but today the first fraction was just perfect for her.
Michael, this filly has answered every single question. You know, Bob joked when he walked down here, he should have run her in the Big Cap. What do you think about that?
Well, Bob was thinking about it, but a mile and a quarter, that's a tough ask for her. I'm not sure she could go that far, but we're going to head back east, and we're going to take on the big girls back there and see what happens. But the end goal is to go back to Breeders' Cup and try and repeat, and maybe we can win an Eclipse Award this year, we hope.
And they're off in the San Felipe.
Joined by Peter Fleur of Speedway Stables, we get to talk Patente, the winner of the San Felipe here. Pete, let's talk about the race. Any anxious moments for you watching that? Because it looked like he needed every piece of ground today.
Well, I thought there would be a lot of pace, and there was. And so Juan laid just off that pace, and he's bred for this distance, Zoe, but you know, he's only had been in a sprint race, so you kind of cross your fingers and give it a little of this and hope something positive happens. But I thought Juan did a great job laying behind him, going around the far turn. He gave him a kick, and then we all started getting excited.
And they're off in the Santa Anita Handicap.
Grade 1 Big Cap goes to this guy, Richie Boltus, alongside his jockey, Diego Herrera. British Isles. Richie, it's your second Big Cap. How are you feeling?
I feel great. Yeah, I was a little worried around the turn, but you know what? Hey, I don't know. I mean, Diego did a great job with this horse. I thought around the turn he was asking him, and I didn't know if we had anything left, and then all of a sudden he bursted away, and I was ecstatic, you know. It meant a lot to the owners, and it meant a lot to Diego, his first Grade 1 win, and it's, you know, keeping it close. Yeah. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that we do continue racing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Do join us on Saturday for a George Mott's burger. He is the Burger King. If you like fried onion smash burgers, just show up at Santa Anita. We'll give you a cold brew to go with it. The place to be. I know Randy could really use a George Mott's burger, couldn't you?
Never had one. It sounds good, though.
Well, one of my favorite horses took down the Grade 1 Santa Anita Handicap on Saturday. That was British Isles, giving young jockey, 21 years old he is, his very first Grade 1 win. That's Diego Herrera. He started off galloping quarter horses as a young kid. He actually won a Grade 1 quarter horse race a couple of years ago. So it's nice to see him pick up his first Grade 1. Perhaps not the strongest rendition of the Grade 1 Big Cap that we've seen in times past with the scratch of Skippy Longstocking, just one of the main scratches there. But Randy, what did you make of the Big Cap? And apart from making it a $20 million race, what can we do? Bill wants to move it to Memorial Day. We saw that in his column today, a very good column, by the way. You should read it, Bill Finley's column. But what would you do?
Well, hang on. First of all, other than the obvious, which is the name British Isles, why is he one of your favorite horses?
Just a cool dude. You know, Baffert had him originally. I'm not quite sure how he wound up going to Baltus. I think they might have bought him in like a Horses of Racing age sale. He's just, you can spot him out on the track. He's a big chestnut horse with a white face. It just seems like he's been around forever. He's just a cool dude. And it was nice to see Diego, who, by the way, is going to move his tack down to Gulfstream Park starting next week, I believe. Nice to see him get a Grade 1 race. He's a really good kid.
So the name British Isles doesn't have even just a little bit to do with it?
Not a tiny bit. Not a tiny bit, Randy.
Tiny bit. the Puma. The Puma.
I don't know what you mean.
Okay. You know, I don't want to dump on the Santa Anita Handicap. It's clearly, in my opinion at least, Skippy Longstocking would have just aired if he had run in that race. And for those that don't know, I think most people watching this would know, he was going to go. They loaded him into an airplane. Before they even took off, he started throwing a fit uncharacteristically on the flight. And, you know, for those that think that that people always put money over the well-being of horses, they voluntarily gave up what would have been a pretty solid, you know, $230,000 payday or whatever, and pulled him off the plane because they didn't want to risk him completely having a meltdown on the flight and hurting himself en route from Florida to California. So without Skippy Longstocking, it turned out to be what I thought was a pretty weak field. And I tell you how weak it was. British Isles went his final quarter of a mile in 28, a little over 28 seconds, and drew away. And I was in such disbelief of the final quarter mile and the final time of 2:05 and change that I downloaded the race and I put it on the video timer, and damned if it's not accurate. If you had gone with a buyer speed figure, looking at the other races on the card, and this was the last dirt race on the card, and there would have been plenty of other races worth of evidence, then the Santa Anita Handicap would have come up with something like a 70. That's how bad it was. That's how bad the race was. And we boosted it up, assuming that maybe the track got slower. I don't know. But he had run a 90 in his most recent race. And so we went ahead and what we called we projected a 90 for the big cap. How can you give the big cap a 70 when a horse draws away to win by open lengths? But clearly the race is struggling. For whatever reason. It used to be $1 million. 2016 was the last time that Santa Anita gave away a purse of $1 million. Now it's 300,000. And I know this is a little bit of a one-off because of Skippy Longstocking and all that. It's not usually this week, but it's in grave danger right now of losing its Grade 1 status after a field like this. I know that's been a topic of conversation. Is it fair? You know, do you give California, because of the struggles of Southern California and the importance of the circuit, do you give them the benefit of the doubt and don't downgrade some of these races? But then on the flip side, this was not a good race. It's not a Grade 1 caliber race for sure. So do you stick with the data? Do you give California credit? I don't know, TD. That's a tough call.
You know, and there are swirling explanations as far as what has led to the demise of the big cap, and it's kind of coming to vogue right now to pile on the Stronach group for whatever reason. Some of them legitimate, and some of them are circumstantial. But you tie in that you go back a decade, and the last time the Santa Anita Handicap was $1 million, I believe that coincides with its purse knockdown the next year. Was right around the same time the Pegasus World Cup was introduced by the Stronach Group at Gulfstream Park. So that siphons some horses. There's also the big cluster of international races in the early quarter of the year, every year. The Saudi Cup now has come into vogue. The Dubai World Cup, that's been around for 30 years. So but there are lots of options around. I know our colleague Bill Finley, in his weekend review column that came out in Monday's TDN, said, why don't we move it off the calendar from early March and we put it into a spot where there aren't a lot of races for older dirt route horses at the grade 1 level. He was thinking sometime around Memorial Day, which is a spot that the Hollywood Gold Cup used to occupy when Hollywood Park was running. But there are no easy answers. And I think it's, you can zero in and try and drill down on what to do to complain about or hopefully to fix the big cap. But it's endemic for other grade 1 races, and it's accentuated in Southern California because the circuit essentially functions like an island right now. But same day, another grade 1 race, the Beholder Mile, we had a Breeders' Cup winner against 4 other horses, and only 2 of them, the best they could manage, were grade 3 stakes winners. So it's not just the big cap, and it's not just Santa Anita either.
Yeah, I think the primary issue for the big cap is the fact that it's got to go up against the Saudi Cup and the Dubai World Cup. I mean, especially now you throw the Saudi Cup into the mix. I mean, there were enough horses that didn't want to make the trip to Dubai that it would still be an okay race, in the early days of the Dubai World Cup, although not as good as it used to be. But now you put the Saudi Cup in there at $20 million as well. And horses are not going to run in the Saudi Cup and then come back and run in the big cap. That's not going to happen. And there's nothing they can do about that. So maybe moving it, if they want to preserve it, might be the only option. Maybe tie a big bonus for the Pegasus World Cup to the Santa Anita Handicap. Try to keep some of those horses in this country. I don't know what the answer is.
And at the end of the day, guys, money talks. If you think about the Dubai World Cup, what's that worth now? 6? Is it 6? It was 10 or 11 at one point.
Oh, I think it's like 12.
12, sorry. It's 12. All right. So that's still a lot of money, right? But they're having the same dilemma every year because Saudi is 20 million. So people are like, well, yeah, I think I'd rather go to Saudi than go to Dubai. And if they win Saudi, they're already there. So that'll be an added bonus. But people are more pointing to Saudi than they are, 20 versus 10. It's money. And it's always going to be that way, unfortunately. All right. Enough of that. Let's switch gears and stay with Dubai. We'll talk about the Dubai World Cup. 20 Japanese runners confirmed, 6 already there. Some are dropping by the wayside due to what's going on over in Dubai. We do know that Forever Young is already there. That, for me, will be the main one that I'm concerned with. Randy, do we know who's going, who's not going? The plane's supposed to leave America on Saturday.
Yeah, I think people are still, watching CNN and watching Fox News, trying to see, we talked about it last week. Are they really going to run the Dubai World Cup? There was no sense in talking about it last week. You can make the case that even talking about it right now is premature because things change in 24 hours. If suddenly bombs start falling close to Maidan, the drones and whatever, then that changes the entire complexion. What do you do then? So as of right now, I think it seems to have stabilized enough that people are willing to take a shot, as Alex Lieblong pointed out. I mean, his granddaughter's going with him. He is 25 years old. And he confirmed after we got off the air, he confirmed that he's tried to talk his granddaughter out of it, but he said, you can't tell a 25-year-old anything nowadays. So she's going. So, as of right now, it looks like it may be more business as usual than, really adversely affected, but that could seriously change given what goes on.
Yeah, I have enough trouble trying to handicap horse races without trying to handicap geopolitics, but it does seem to be in flux, and I think we're going to see some changes right up until the time that plane takes off on Saturday from the United States.
If you're familiar with the TDN Writers Room, and of course you are because you're watching this, you're familiar with this acronym, PHBA, one of our sponsors, Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. The $1.7 million Pennsylvania bred stakes schedule kicks off on April the 22nd with a pair of $100,000 stakes for older horses, one for fillies and mares, open to all PA breds, and a $75,000 3-year-old stakes for Pennsylvania sired PA breds. All 3 of those stakes races, and they're called the Paige McKinney, the Unique Bella, and the Wait for It, will be run at 6 furlongs at Parks. Nominations for these stakes will close on Wednesday, April the 8th. So don't miss out. Contact the Parks Racing Office to get those noms in. Meanwhile, if you'd like more information about the Pennsylvania breeding program, you can go to pabred.com or you can call Brian Sanfratello, 610-444-1050.
The Pennsylvania breeding program is the best program in the country. The Stallion Awards, the owner bonuses, also the restricted races and the stakes races for Pennsylvania breds. Last year, 321 Pennsylvania breeders earned Breeders' Awards. 22 Pennsylvania breeders earned over $100,000. We have the best program in the country. Take advantage of the fantastic program that we have.
Learn more at pabred.com.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky breds. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
The TDN Writers Room is also brought to you by the KTA and the KTOB. And Kentucky Breds took home the weekend Derby preps. The Puma, Kentucky bred, obviously we've talked about him, the Tampa Bay Derby, and Potente in the San Felipe Stakes. In fact, the entire Derby leaderboard is topped by Kentucky breds. No surprise there. Paladin, the Puma, Silent Tactic, Class President, Commandment, Iron Honor, Potente, Chip Honcho, Golden Tempo, Litmus Test. They're all bred in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And for the second year in a row, $20 million is being paid to breeders participating in the KTBIF program for racing in 2025. Kentucky breds, breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
Well, earlier this week, or even last week, it was announced that John Kimmel was set to saddle his very final winner after decades in the training ranks. I can name a gazillion good horses he's trained. He's a good horseman. He's a licensed veterinarian, and he's also was a part-time bloodstock agent. Looks like he'll be going full-time now. I've run into John numerous times already at the OBS sales, and you know, Bill was kind of penning this as a sub story. Another trainer bows out of the game, and I know it's expensive in New York, but John's 71 years old. He's got a very good eye for a horse. He buys good horses. Trust me, I'm not feeling sorry for John. He is smiling, driving around in his golf cart, and he is a very, very happy man right now. And honestly, he described it a little bit as maybe a conflict of interest, being a trainer and also a bloodstock agent. So he's probably going to get more clients than he can swing a stick at. So rather than feel sorry for John Kimmel, I'm going to embrace him and say, good for you, John. Enjoy some time off, not having to work 24/7 and answer the phone all day long. It's a big thumbs up for John Kimmel. What do you think, Randy?
Well, he no longer has to explain to owners why horses don't win, right? What Bill was going for.
I know.
Is the challenge facing all trainers nowadays, especially trainers in New York. You've got the cost of doing business in New York with workers' comp and everything else involved. You've got the difficulty in finding help, which has been exacerbated now by the immigration situation. Okay. You've got the shrinking foal crop, which means there are fewer horses to train, the same number of trainers. And then you've got the rise of the super trainer, where guys like Baffert and Pletcher and Cox, I'm not faulting them, but they can train 200 plus horses, which kind of squeezes out some of the other trainers with fewer horses to go around. So all those challenges are why a lot of trainers are either getting out of the business or are contemplating it. But I think you're probably right about Kimmel at 71. He can go out with his head high and smiling.
And he'll be active at the OBS sales starting this week. And, I think it's also Chris McGrath of Thoroughbred Daily News wrote a great long form profile of John, I believe about 18 months ago. It's if you look at Bill Finley's news story from last week about John stepping away from training, there's a link in there at the bottom to that story. And if you go through that, even as far back as late 2024, John Kimmel was signaling that it might be time for him to step away. He had his success when he could still feel he could manage a stable hands-on when it was in the 40 to 50 horse range. But at one point he made a decision. He didn't want to be one of those guys who manages 200 horses because it's a different ball game. Just trying to take care of that many head and spreading them out and not conflicting. And you're on the phone all the time dealing with owners and dealing with logistics. And, but you talk about, a trainer steps away and you don't see his name in the standings, or you don't see his name in the entries anymore. There are other human costs that cascade down from that. I mean, you talked about the help a little bit, but John has had some of the guys working under his shed row for 30 years. And that's a big change in life for those guys to all of a sudden have to go and try and reconnect and hook on with another outfit after being with somebody who's been so steady and strong. But John was down to just a handful of horses, I believe just 5 when he opted out over the weekend. And we do wish him luck in his new endeavor, and we think he'll do well. One thing that I had totally forgotten this, he was the original trainer through the first 4 starts of the 1995 Derby winner Thunder Gulch before the horse got privately transferred over to D-Way Lucas's book.
I didn't know that either. Wow.
Ooh, rabbit hole TD Thornton. Look at this.
Yes.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about some upcoming races this weekend. I can think of 500,000 reasons to go to Colonial this coming weekend. It is the Virginia Derby with a $500,000 pot. It looks like it's going to be a field of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about a field of 10, a full field. Who's it led by, Randy? Who leads the field?
Well, Baffert's got Butane in there, so Bob's always, got to be obviously strongly considered in any of these races, although Butane is not one of his A-listers, I don't think, at this point. But, I was talking to a trainer the other day, and it was Brad Cox, actually. I was texting with him about one of his horses, Confessional, I think, is running in there, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, so where are you going to send Confessional? I guess your choices are kind of, limited. You can go here, you can go there. And he said, we're going to Virginia Derby. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even think about Virginia. It's a newcomer, right? And I said, Wayne certainly thought about it, Wayne Lucas won it last year with a horse that just ran off the TV screen. A fantastic effort.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's now become a points race on the road to the Kentucky Derby, and it's something that a lot of people like me have to get accustomed to.
Yeah, well, think about this as you try to put the Virginia Derby on your radar screen. It did start last year. Colonial's race meet has traditionally been through the summer months, with a focus on their great turf course there, but they wanted to do something a little bit different. And they ran it's a spring festival style meet just over this weekend in March. Last year's Virginia Derby was the first time that the race, which had previously existed on the turf, it got switched because they're not going to be making extensive use of that turf course in March. So it's a 1-turn, 1 1/8 race, which kind of stuck out as an anomaly last year, and it is for this year as far as a points race on the Derby qualifying trail. But turn your clocks ahead till next year and think about this. Once the new Belmont Park opens and the Remsen Stakes in December is run there and the Wood Memorial in April is run there, those 1 1/8 races at Belmont Park are also going to be 1 turn. So now next year we're going to have 3 races at a unique configuration, a 1-turn, 9 furlong race, and the Virginia Derby won't stick out. It will be a bit of a bridge between those 2 races. So we are starting to see the scene shift a little bit. I don't know what that portends for this year. I think Butane is the horse to beat. He seems very logical as far as a Baffert horse who shows tactical speed, going a 1-turn, 9 furlong race. He was 3rd in the Southwest Stakes. He was 2nd in the San Vicente. And don't forget, even as far back as 6 months ago, he was the beaten favorite in the Hopeful Stakes at Saratoga over Ted Noffey. But I think Confessional might be kind of the wise guy's second choice play here for Brad Cox. Blinkers on, and he's got some decent horses in his company lines from Florida, having run 2nd behind Nearly, and he was 7th behind Renegade. last time out in the Sam F. Davis. So he's going to be stretching out in distance, but shortening up to in a way to a one-turn race.
Zoe, this is
watch out for High Camp in there as well. Just broke his maiden. He looks like a sprinter. He's by Instagram, but he's out of an Uncle Mo mare. Got a pretty decent figure going, 7 panels, winning by 5 for Will Walden.
This is what makes TD, Zoe. I mean, everybody knows Belmont Park is being rebuilt and Aqueduct's going to close down, and everybody's focused on what the grandstand at Belmont is going to look like and when they're going to reopen. I haven't heard anybody talk about the Wood Memorial at 1 1/8 around one turn. That's a great point, but true.
Yeah, well done, TD, because I hadn't even thought about the Wood Memorial there. Like, yeah, wow. Okay, let's talk about the Virginia Oaks. Who can give me the winner of that? Where are we going? It's kind of a small field. Is it Baffert again with Bottle of Rouge and Pratt?
The numbers say Dazzling Dame. She is 4 for 5 lifetime. She lost in the Pocahontas, another one-turn race at Churchill Downs, to the Terry Bradshaw filly taken by the wind without too much of an excuse there. But in her other 4 races at Laurel and Delaware and Aqueduct and Monmouth, so she's been a traveler. She's looked pretty good. I don't know what she beat necessarily in her last start, but she won the Busanda by 11.5 lengths with the Beyer speed figure of 90. And for 3-year-old fillies in January, that's a pretty gaudy number. She hasn't run since then. She's been training well, and I'm guessing that she'll be a relatively solid. Well, I think she'll be the favorite. Not a solid favorite because you got Bottle of Rouge in there, TD.
Yeah, I think Bottle of Rouge, I think the Baffert syndrome will eventually sway the bettors over to favoritism there. I think they'll pile on Bob's horses shipping in. I was also on Dazzling Dame, and the filly that she beat in the Busanda when she aired by the length of the stretch, she came back and won the Ruthless Stakes in her next start in early February at Aqueduct. And I guess I do have a little bit of a negative handicapping opinion on Bottle of Rouge coming out of her race at Sunland Park. She was 2 to 5, figured to be much the best on paper there, but she was swerving in and out in the stretch, all out to hold off a 21-1 maiden in that race. And, the race was the focus of a steward's inquiry. Her number did not come down in that race, but it wasn't as visually impressive, I thought. And I'm going to maybe try to take a stand against her in Virginia.
And she probably should have come down, Bottle of Rouge. They did give J.J. Hernandez days. So he served days at Santa Anita, I think about 10 days ago. And it's interesting to see that Flavian Pratt, who's obviously going to be there anyway, picked up the mount on Bottle of Rouge. It is now time for the Work of the Week, brought to you by First TV. And it was really nice this week to see our old buddy Carson's Run back on the work tab. Here he is, finishing up nicely in a 5 furlong breeze in 103 and 4. Tepid, but he looks really, really good here. This is at Payson Park for trainer Miguel Clement last Saturday. Carson's Run is a 2-time Grade 1 winner whose 2025 was limited to just 2 starts, but he's been working very steadily since February for his 2026 debut. That's him on the outside. You can see, I think he looks really good there. It'll be nice to see our old buddy Carson's Run back at the races.
Be a smarter bettor with First TV, the best horses. With thousands of exclusive morning workouts. All at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart. With First TV. All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
Another of our sponsors at the TDN Writers Room, West Point Thoroughbreds, has arrived in Ocala for the OBS March sale of 2-year-olds in training, and they've gotten there on a high note because their horse Final Boss upset the Grade 2 Frank Kilroe Miles Stakes on Saturday at Santa Anita. Final Boss is a 5-year-old son of American Pharaoh. It was his first start of the year for trainer John Sadler. Bloodstock agent David Ngordo selected Final Boss as a yearling for West Point and co-owner Michael Talla.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's edition of the TDN Writers Room. Bill will be back next week. Hopefully he's hungover or something, or at least got a suntan. I mean, that... And maybe the Red Sox won as well. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to our Gainesway guests of the week, Alex Lieblong, Randy, TD, Sue, Katie, Bill, and Ali. We'll all see you next week.